So our creative industry is very informal in nature. Um, we haven't enforced nationally just yet the need for people to get registered companies and register their brands, and to have artists especially basically treat themselves as a brand. Are they registered business entities? Are they paying taxes? Are they any of this, which most of them aren't? They're not contributing back to the society in that formal way. So there has to be some sort of allowance. Yeah, there has to be some sort of allowance made for them, to access those services during this time. And we're hoping that while that allowance is made during this time, that they also start to think about future. We need to register our businesses. We need to register and pay our national security fees. We need to register and pay taxes, etc. So that in the event, God forbid, should something like this happen again, we are on a preferred list of being, recognized and able to access these funds. Even pension plans, they can't access that because they're not paying their national security, right?
We are used to that. We are used to transforming ourselves, to being resilient, to like pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps and creating, right? That's like the training. That's what the and I think that's the life force. That's the vitality of being an artist. And so I think that in some ways we can turn to our art forms. We can turn to our practice. We can turn to our the kinds of safe havens we have within our bodies. And ultimately, it's a mood regulator, I think, right? I mean, you can always go into a new space when you do art. You can reinvent yourself. You can become a character. You can draw an alternate world, right? So I think in some ways we're blessed to have that.
I think DCase, the city, the mayor, like as soon as it hit, like even before I think we knew like it was gonna be extensive, as extensive as it has been, there was like messages coming out about like applying for this funding, relief funding. Three Arts is an organization that I saw things from immediately. DCase, the city signing off, and so not only the funds that they were already planning to release, but creating different pools of funds. And yeah, so I think their reaction to what has happened for artists specifically has been is definitely appreciated. I'll say that.
இந்த ஆன்லைன் ஷோஸ் பண்ற இருக்குன்னா அது பண்றதுக்கு கலைஞர்கள் தயாரா இருக்காங்க. அவங்களுக்கு ஷோஸ் கிடைச்சா, ஏன்னா இப்போ இல்ல, ஏன்னா எந்த ஒரு சாய்ஸும் கிடையாம இருக்கு. அரசாங்கம் உதவி பண்ணிச்சுன்னா பிரச்சனை இல்லை அவங்களுக்கு. நம்ம வந்து பரவாயில்ல. ஆனா எதுவுமே இல்லாத சமயத்துல ப்ரோக்ராம் வேணும் அவங்களுக்கு. அவங்களாம் வந்து அந்த கலைகளை கண்ணாமல் அவங்க வாழ முடியாது. அவங்களுக்கு ஏதோ ஒரு மாதிரியே இருக்கும். ஏன்னா நமக்கு பல வேலைகள் இருக்கு, உங்களுக்கு நிறைய வேலைகள் இருக்கு. இதோ ஒரு வேலை, பார்ட் ஆஃப் ஒர்க். எனக்கு இது வந்து ஒரு பார்ட் ஆஃப் ஒர்க். ஆனா இதுதான் கலைன்றப்போ அவங்களால பண்ணாம இருக்க முடியாது. அவங்களுக்கு வந்து ஆன்லைன் ஷோஸ் கிடைச்சா ரொம்ப ரொம்ப சந்தோஷமா இருக்கும். உதவிகள் கிடைச்சா ரொம்ப சந்தோஷம்.
Because I don't know how popular this platform is specifically with Bulgarian audiences. It might be much more popular in the US, for example. So this will be something that they will have to explore. What are the platforms that will allow them to be better at, finding money? I mean, not finding, but receiving money from the audience. Something that is good that's happening though, and it's not so much dependent on the artist's struggle, is that some municipalities in Bulgaria have decided to make funds specifically for online performances. This is like something very, very new. We haven't had targeted financing for online art until now. And right now, because of the crisis, at least two of the bigger municipalities, probably more will do it, are offering funds and support for creating online performances for artists. And we've also heard from the European Parliament that there are some intentions or at least they're trying to find a way to secure funding for artists, that artists get paid for their work online. So there are even talks on, on a higher level, and this is a very important change. Probably it will probably bring a very important change in cultural policies that are bigger than us or the artists themselves.
The industry, a lot of senior engineers as well as a lot of manufacturers have been putting out a lot of training content online.
Oh, good.
So that has been there to kind of keep us busy. A lot of companies who are working on like newer technology, they've been putting out that technology online, giving demo versions and stuff like that. So there are a lot of things to explore. For me personally, apart from what I do as a live sound engineer, I also have my own company which I run, which we design and install audio systems. Currently, we were focusing mainly on performance spaces like auditoriums, clubs and stuff like that. I probably have to look at different spaces which would need which would need audio systems, like homes or schools and things like that. So I am looking at expanding into that field.
Right.
I think all of us have to kind of accept the reality that this next year is not going to be like what it was all this while, and we need to look at like kind of other options.
Right.
So imagine even right now, as people are, as we're all in lockdown, what's happening is we're either performing for our families in, whatever ways, in good ways and in bad ways. The proximity kind of got a lot of things in behavior, good and bad, but at the same time, we're also peeping from our windows, checking what's the neighbor doing, or what plants are they growing. Oh, I can see their TV from here. What are they watching? So that is that. Then gardens become, within a society, gardens become like spaces like, oh, who's taking their dog for a walk, or staircases become like exercise spots, terraces, people like are exercising and, doing things on terraces. So it's like now people are valuing public space, they're valuing any kind of space,
For example, for Victory Gardens being at a much smaller scale than a Goodman, the possibilities are almost now like a level playing field. So if you look at a huge concert that the BBC, that UK did with Lady Gaga and Taylor Swift and so on, the kind of performance that you see is the same as what one of us are able to do with the artists that are not as big, so it's about finding that right aesthetic and connection. But the key is to stay connected, and key is for the leadership to step in and make sure they talk to their donors, because the donors care. The organization, they're part of those organizations because they care. And nobody's running away. It's just, let's figure out a way to support in a sustainable manner, to make sure that we are spending our time and energy on what is more meaningful at this time.
How do we use this time to reevaluate our complicity with capitalism and its drive to constantly force us into product, but actually taking a step back and demanding help from producers, from funders for development that does not require constant public outcomes? That would be what I feel is a way that this is the gift we're being given right now.
Is there anything that you guys are doing differently for your clients right now in terms of, when we spoke earlier, you had mentioned something about helping the clients be more, their communication to be more transparent and meaningful right now, how they reach out to their audience, right? So how does that, I mean, you don't need to give anything away, but how does that work? How do you, what's the difference in how you used to communicate before to now?
Like I said, it is a challenging time now. So, I mean, brands can't afford to just hard sell anymore. That's just not going to fly, right? I mean, it is a time for brands to truly build relationships. So it is about being transparent about your own hurdles. It is about being transparent about how you're trying to help your community. It is about being transparent and saying, I don't have these sort of funds, but what I can do is what I'm doing for you. It is an opportunity to humanize your brand, right? It's not just about pushing out stuff to sell anymore. So in whatever small way your brand can help to make a consumer journey or a customer's life slightly more joyful during these tough times, I think it's a good opportunity, because these are times that your consumers don't typically forget you. Right? When you invest something in these times, it goes a long way. People don't forget these things that you do for them in these times, versus whenever things do eventually go back to a normal, then you're fighting with the rest of the fish who's trying to again hard sell something on you.
I think the biggest thing for us, it's one part is just practical, right? Like a lot of people have this, you have plans and you need to change it. We had another 10 shows for our tour and we basically had to cancel it or try to find a way. And that is, in our case, we were very busy trying to move the shows up. And in the Netherlands, some theaters were willing to do it. Some said we can't. And so it was like we were just busy kind of dealing with the logistics. In all of it, I think, whatever it is that is occurring, really trying to look at what is actually available instead of you want it to be like it used to be, because it's not. It's not. And it's also, I would even say, it's never going to be the same again. We are going through a really big change. And so really trying to be present and not try to find a way to get back, for me, has been a way to deal with it. And so it's been a lot of logistical things that we've been busy with, moving it up in the summer. And then a lot of theaters have just decided to close for this season and just said, we start again only in September. And so that has had a lot of repercussions.
இவ்வளவு காலமா அப்படிதான் இருக்கு, இப்போவும் அப்படிதான் இருக்குது. வேற சிச்சுவேஷன் இல்ல. மாச சம்பளம்னா அது வேற டைப் ஆஃப் இருக்கும், ஆனா இது அப்படி கிடையாது. அது ரொம்ப கஷ்டத்துல தான் இருக்கு. எப்படி ரொட்டேட் பண்ணணும், எப்படி செய்யலாம், என்ன பண்ணலாம்னு எல்லாரும் இது அனுபவம் இல்லாத ஒரு எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் இப்போ இருக்குது. அது எப்படி திருப்ப போறோம்னு இன்னும் குழப்பமா தான் இருக்கு. ஆனா என்ன சொல்லலாம், மேபி இந்த கேன்சல் ஆன பெர்ஃபார்மன்ஸ் எல்லாம் எங்களுக்கு டிசம்பர் ஆஃப் சீசன்ல அதை புக் பண்ணி கொடுத்தாங்கன்னா ரொம்ப யூஸ்ஃபுல்லா இருக்கும்.
It's going to be really challenging, particularly for organizations and a lot of nonprofits in particular, I think, that are really centered around community building. This is, in some ways, uncharted territory as far as how do you build that kind of a community online and in a virtual way, and how do you keep a community cohesive in a virtual way. Well, I mean, there are analogs we can look to. I mean, we talk about online communities all the time. That's a common term. So there are examples of communities that exist online. And the question is, how do we transfer our live community that we've built and have, and how do we transfer that over now to our virtual world that we're building? And I don't know that there is any silver bullet for that, and I think there's a lot of innovation still to be done in that. And the innovation is going to be not necessarily in technology. The technology exists. It's going to be in how we utilize that technology, and it's going to be in how we approach it in new ways.
You do design, but you also have to think. And when I say think, it is about understanding, like in a larger circle of events where a designer fits in, where a designer's role is. They also have to think when designing something, what it impacts and the history part of it, to subject so many assumptions to critical thinking. I mean, we as our roles, now that everybody is getting the time to reflect on things they have been doing in this whole setup, I think designers are also getting that opportunity to do that, and they should definitely think about whatever role they are playing in creating more problems, creating more situations. They have to think what's what and where you can compromise. I mean, that's what at least we have been trying to understand in our role. I mean, there's a very specific question: why go back to normal when normal was the problem?
Yeah.
So that's something we are all getting a chance to reflect on, and that's important.
to look at the light, you know, entering the room or flat or house, and see how it passes throughout the day, observing the quality of the color light, observing the little plants or whatever alive you have that grows near you. Observe it, take this time to slow down to this kind of pace. For me, really kind of a shock, but at the same time, so good to allow my pace to slow down to what rhythm I'm forced to take. And somehow, I really hope that we can all take a little bit of this pace or a little bit more of this observation of the cycles and their own pace, and take it once we take out, you go out, you know, take it and to transform it and kind of mold it into the outside world a little more.
That's beautiful.